Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the next chapter in the Sound Waves and Whales Today curriculum. And now we're in chapter 2. We're in the second lesson, and we're focusing on how marine mammals use sound. So let's get started. Now that we understand more about the physics of sound waves, and we've had a chance to look at the animal cards and learn about different kinds of animal hearing, we're going to move on to really focus on marine mammals and the diversity and the evolution of marine mammals. And that's going to help us understand how they use sound in their environment. So the first thing you might ask when you looked at those animal evidence cards is, how did we get so many kinds of marine mammals? Just looking at these few, which is not a representative of all the marine mammals, you still see there's a lot of different kinds of animals. So let's just look at the sorting that you did right before this, when you were doing your notebook. And you would have sorted the manatee and the dugong together as sirenians, sea cows. You would have put harbor porpoise, bottlenose dolphin, pilot whale, beluga whale, northern Atlantic right whale, and blue whale all together as cetaceans. And you would have put the California sea lion and the harbor seal together as pinnipeds. And last, you would have had the sea otter as a carnivore. Now, let's think about what all of these have in common to start with. They're all mammals. And we know that mammals evolved, like all vertebrates, they evolved from fish and they evolved onto land. So amphibians and reptiles evolved from fish, and then mammals evolved from those, and they've been living on land the last 200 million years. And we tend to look at them as animals. So all the animal evidence cards were actually all mammals, but really mammals are just a very small group of all the animals on Earth. I mean, if you think about insects, beetles and bees and butterflies, and you think about jellyfish and sea stars and octopus, there's lots and lots of other kinds of animals, and mammals are just a tiny group. And they have a few things in common. Not only are they vertebrates with 4 limbs, so they have a backbone and all the things they share with reptiles and amphibians and birds, but they also give birth to live young, and they're the only ones that do. They're the only ones that don't lay eggs. So mammals give birth to a live baby, and then they produce milk from mammary glands, which of course is what makes them mammals. They produce the milk to feed the infant, and the infant grows from that until it's able to eat and feed on its own. And most mammals are covered for most of their life with fur or wool or hair of some kind. And that's part of the insulation usually that keeps them warm. So all of the animals that we've been looking at, they all have that in common. They're all mammals. Now, if you look at the ones that we just listed as marine mammals, there's actually quite a lot of differences in those animals. So you'll have some mammals that never leave the ocean. They spend their entire lives in the ocean. Some have to leave the ocean. They feed and get their food from the ocean, but they have to come up on land if they're going to have babies, to give birth and have their pups. And it's very, very different the way they get their food. So some only eat grasses and algae. They're herbivores. Others hunt. They hunt for fish or squid, and they have to swim fast and they have to catch their food. And some feed on huge quantities of water, ocean water, that they sift for teeny tiny little zooplankton. So for example, the shrimp called krill, and each one of them have a very different way of feeding. And that means they have different kinds of mouths, because for hunting for their food or gathering their food, some have very sharp teeth. Some don't have sharp teeth at all. They only have molars that they can grind with. Some have no teeth at all. They have long, thick sheets of baleen for sieving the ocean water, and it's not made of enamel and dentine at all. It's made of the same material as our fingernails. Some have tusks that grow out their front incisors, and some have really special lips that have special vibrissae on the edges of their lips, and they're muscular, and they have little rough pads so that they can gather grasses and pull them into their mouth, or even root around on the bottom and suck up little invertebrates and clams and things like that. So they all feed in really, there's several different ways of feeding, and they have very different mouths and ways of catching their food or eating their food. Now that also extends to the way in which they are social and the way in which they use sound. There's lots of different ways of doing this. So you have some animals who are using social communication only when they're with their pup. So they are usually alone. They're only occasionally social. And for example, with seals, they will come out on land and they will be searching for their pup, and they and their pup will be making sounds that they can recognize each other and they can find each other. And that social communication is really important. There's lots of mothers and calves that make special sounds in different marine mammals to be able to stay in touch with each other. They might be seasonally social. So they may spread out and be great distances apart, but at a certain time of year, they're going to come together. So they might, in one season, like walruses or humpback whales or right whales or gray whales, they may come together and be very vocal, especially when they are coming together for breeding season. So the humpback whale is famous for the songs that they sing during their breeding season in the wintering grounds when they're all gathered together. Walruses would need to make social sounds both above and below water, because they're going to be trying to hear each other and stay in touch, both when they haul out and also when they're underwater. And then some groups are social all the time. In other words, there are family groups that live together and they always are found together and they're always communicating with each other. And so all year round, they're using vocal communication and they're staying in touch with each other vocally. And that includes most of the oceanic dolphins, and especially the larger ones, the toothed whales like pilot whales and orca whales. And those family groups have a very developed series of social communication sounds that they use to stay in touch with each other. And so do oceanic dolphins as well. So there's a huge range, lots of differences in the way that these different marine mammals are staying in touch with each other and using sound for social communication. So let's look at the hearing ranges. And I know you've graphed these and you've looked at some of these and you've paid attention to the patterns in the data. So you already have some ideas. And here we've put all of the marine mammals together. And you might just look at that and think, what's the first thing that you notice when you look at these hearing ranges? And you can see that there's a wide range of hearing frequencies. So we have some animals that have most sensitive hearing range that's very similar to humans, or it's overlaps with humans, and it's even broader in terms of frequency range, but they hear the same frequencies that we do. And there are others where their most sensitive hearing range is much lower frequency than humans. And then you have others where their hearing range is much higher. And you might just take a minute and see if you see any pattern there. Do you notice anything when you look at which animals have about the same sensitive hearing range with humans, which ones have higher frequency hearing, and which ones have lower frequency hearing? And these are all in water. So now we're going to take a break in this video, and you're going to spend a few minutes looking closely at this graph of marine mammal hearing ranges and discussing what frequency of sounds each of these animals can hear well and what kinds of sounds can they not hear at all. And we'll pick back up with this presentation after you've had a chance to fill in your notebooks. See you soon.